I feel like my superpower is consistency, which I know is, obviously it doesn't sound flashy, but I think my power is just on a daily basis to show up and work really hard. And I feel like I'm someone who trains really well, and because of how consistent I am, I'm always confident going into races, and I know that whenever I toe the line, I'm going to show up and I'm going to put my best foot forward.
You guys asked for him. He's finally here. Gary Martin today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so excited for this conversation. I'm really confident you guys are going to enjoy this one and that it lives up to the hype. I see your DMs requesting him on the podcast, and I'm so confident that you are thoroughly going to enjoy this conversation, not just enjoy it, find value from it. If you've been living under a rock, Gary Martin competes for the University of Virginia, and he has PRs of 333 in the 1500, 348 in the mile, 736 in the 3K, and 1316 in the 5K. Gary's resume is as fast as it is fearless. This man is a man on a mission, a man with titles on his mind, records on his mind, and he's also just a fun guy. We talk about things both within the sport, outside the sport, and applicable takeaways that you guys can apply into your own running. If you enjoy this one, make sure you are follow or subscribe so you never miss another episode. Give us a 5-star review because it takes 5 seconds and helps us out, and share the podcast with a teammate, a friend, a family member, someone who you think would find value and benefit from it. Doing those 3 things greatly helps us to grow the podcast, which is ultimately my goal. I want to create great impact in the sport and in the world, and you guys can help us do that by doing those 3 things, which take less than a minute combined. So with all those notes aside, I hope you all enjoy this inspirational conversation with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. 348, Mr. 333, Gary Martin. Gary Martin, welcome to the podcast. My DMs get flooded all the time. Get Gary on the podcast. Get Gary on the podcast. So we're making it happen. We're men of the people. How you doing this morning?
Doing good. Excited to be on. Happy to fulfill people's requests. So always fun.
Let's go back a little bit in time, doing this kind of series leading into the Festival of Miles meet this year. And a question I've been asking a lot of boys is, what was the moment where you realized that this meet existed? And a lot of people point to when you broke 4 minutes in the mile for the first time there. Take me back to that day and what you feel like it did for your confidence in the sport, as well as to kind of be the guy that set the stream of people breaking 4 there.
Yeah, well, I think it was pretty cool because I think I got invited to run the meet before I had broken 4, and I think it was earlier in my season. And it was kind of circled on my calendar as this is going to be a really cool opportunity. And I got to run in the pro race at the time, which obviously I know now there's a multitude of high schoolers going under 4, so you don't have to run in the pro race to go break 4 there. But, I knew I was going to get to run against a bunch of guys who would run sub 4 and get the opportunity to. And, by the time it came to that race, I broke 4 once at my league meet, but, it was kind of an opportunity to go try to improve my PR and back up that one performance and show that, hey, I ran a sub 4 once. It wasn't a fluke. Let's go do it again. Let's go run against these pro guys and just show that I belong. And I was able to ink out a tiny little PR. I think it was a 10th of a second, but it was just a really cool race, really cool opportunity. And it was, especially as a high schooler, I'd never run against pro runners really. So it was pretty cool just to run against college and pro guys and, get to mix it up.
I think that was 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, it was 3 years ago now. It feels like it's gone by really quick. So it doesn't feel like that long ago, but I guess it was.
If I was to go back to you 3 years ago and say 3 years from now, leading into that year's event, there are going to be 4 boys who had already broken 4 going into the meet, what would you have said?
It's funny because I don't know if I'd be that surprised, because I feel like when my class started to do it, it was me, Colin, Reinhardt, Harrison, Simeon, and Connor were year younger, but there was 5 guys who broke 4 in the mile that year. And, it was kind of hey, this feels like the start of something where the floodgates have opened. And, when you see guys your age just going out and running that fast, it kind of gives you confidence that you can do the same thing. And for me, it was looking at Colin Solomon running sub 4 indoors and saying, hey, I don't think he's better than me. I think I can go do the same thing. So I think when you have guys, those guys looking up at guys like us who did it a few years ago, they're probably saying, hey, I think I'm better than Gary Martin was in high school, and I'm going to go break 4. So, I think hopefully we set a precedent, and it's pretty cool to see what's going on now.
I feel like at every level, high school, college, pro, 3 years ago, I'm trying to think who are the top guys in the NCAA, probably Colin Cooper. Maybe they had just gone pro, but those guys. And then at high school, you see, Newberry Park's dominance, you on the track, Reinhardt on the track. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of names. And then the pro level, guys like Yared were starting to come on the scene. Hobbs even was around your time in high school. I feel like the last 5 years for American men has been like every level is like slowly elevating. And then guys like you go to college, they start crushing college, and then they go pro. In Hawker's case, they win Olympic gold. How cool is it to see from the outside, like the rise of U.S. men's distance running, as well as now start to be a part of it, both in high school, being a record setter in that mile, breaking four, adding to the legacy of, the 4 minute mile, as well as now in college, just like crushing it, running times that are unfathomable.
Yeah, from the outside, I think, when I first got into running, I think obviously I was looking at it from the outside because I wasn't running that fast yet. I was, like whatever, around the 208, 800, and I was a freshman in high school. And, I was looking at guys like, guys on my high school team talked about like Matthew Centrowitz and Grant Fisher, and, both guys who had already done stuff, but also were like, for Grant Fisher's case, like moving up in the sport. And those are kind of the guys I looked up to. But as I've gotten more into the sport, and, it feels kind of crazy that I'm in the mix now. And even more than guys like Cole Hawker going to the Olympics and winning, and Bryce Hoppel like being up there at the Olympics, Grant Fisher medaling in 2 events. There's just incredible depth in American distance running right now. Like I hit the world standard in the mile indoors, and it feels like there's so many guys who I'm going to have to compete with at USA's to try to get those spots on the team. And if you're in another country, if you hit the world standard, a lot of times it's likely you're going to worlds. But in the USA, you have a whole bunch of guys who hitting world standards, want those, and who are going to be fighting you for those spots. So I think just the depth of guys from 800 to 10K is pretty incredible in America right now.
Do you think this is the year where the final of the U.S. men's 15 at the U.S. Championships, fourth place goes under 330, doesn't make the team?
There's a shot. It's always hit or miss because depending on who takes it, it could be a 345 race or it could be a 327 race. So last year we saw it go fast, and I think if it was a 328 race, there probably could have been 4 or 5 guys who went under and ran 328, 329. So I think I'm ready for it. I think there's a lot of other guys think the same thing. If they need to run 329, 330 to make the team, they're going to do it. So we'll see. Depends on who takes it and who wants it to be a fast or slow race, but it's always interesting.
Obviously, you have many different parts of your running career, and within the year you've got cross, indoor, outdoor, and you're on a way different schedule than a pro. But also, I'm sure when you're running times like 348, in the back of your head, I'm sure you're training and you're believing like, oh, I want to make a US team, I want to make a world team, like I want to represent the red, white, and blue on my chest. How do you go about like having those dreams and those goals while also sequentially focusing on the right things, like a DMR indoors, a DMR at Penn Relays, NCAAs? Like these are things that pros aren't even thinking about because they don't have to.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a tough balance, but I think you just kind of have to look at it as part of the training and part of the build up to bigger things. So, for me, it was like winning the DMR indoors was, that was a massive goal for both me and my teammates. So, I'm thinking to myself, if I can get this race experience and this championship experience, it's not like I'm peaking too early. I'm, getting good experience and I'm training through, and I'm preparing myself for big championship moments that'll come later in the season. So I think you kind of have to look at it like that. And it also helps when you have coaches such as Coach Van and Coach Dunbar who are planning my schedule very carefully and, holding me back in training and keeping me healthy so that I can peak at the right time and be ready for these big college meets, but also be ready to go in July and August.
Which would you rather have, NCAA title in the 15 this year or make the world team in the 15? Only get to choose one.
It might be crazy, but I think I might say an NCAA title in the 15 because I've got 2 years left in the NCAA, and that's the big goal. Like that's the ultimate goal as a college miler. So I got time to make a world team. Obviously, I'd love to do it this year too, but if I can get the NCAA title, that'd be pretty special.
How crazy is it to you to state I've got 2 more years left in the NCAA after running 348 in the mile, 736 in the 3K? You've got time to do some damage.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, especially like I look at a lot of the guys who are running crazy fast right now, and a lot of them are done. So I feel pretty lucky that I've got another year left, and obviously I want to get it done this year, but my mindset is also I'm going to be able to do some pretty special things next year, and just build off the momentum I'm building. And I've gotten better every year in college. This year was obviously probably the biggest jump, but I feel pretty confident that there's more left in the tank. I'm going to keep getting better, and hopefully I can win some national titles, set some records both this year and, a full year next year.
How fast would you have to go to skip college eligibility, go pro? Do you ever think about that? I mean, when you're running these times, you're kind of on the cusp of it.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like it would have to be something crazy because I feel like I have a really good situation right now with great training partners. I mean, we have a bunch of All-Americans, Shane Cohen, who's an NCAA champ training here. And, I got great coaching, great trainers, and, and NIL with Brooks, who's supporting me in college. So I feel like with the NIL landscape now, it makes it a lot easier to stay in college and feel supported and, be able to have a successful college career before going pro.
That was actually what I was going to ask you about, your NIL with Brooks. How much do you think that has been a game changer for athletes like you or other people for actually like staying in the NCAA system? I also think we see it in other sports where it's like Cooper Flag at Duke, if we're talking basketball. Sorry to bring up a rival school here, but like apparently his package to stay, he would have made more staying in the NCAA than he will on his NBA contract. And with NIL, like we're starting to see this reality where maybe, I don't know, running landscape as well, because that stuff is more private, but like you can get up there in terms of numbers of like what you could be making as a pro and stay in the system and win some NCAA titles along the way and, ultimately get your degree, which is what a lot of people stay around for.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think there's not going to be basketball or football money in running, but at the same time, if you can pay a guy if you have a good situation going on in college and you can get paid to, stay in college, get your degree, and, keep training in a system that works for you, I think we're going to see a lot more people choosing to do that. And especially, I think we've seen a trend of, a lot of runners when they graduate and go pro still staying with their college coach and, training with them. So I think, NIL is kind of an opportunity to do that before you go pro. And, if you have a really good situation, just stay there and be able to capitalize on still being a student and, not have to make the decision to go pro yet.
We talked about this year's NCAA meet. I was talking to Nathan Green about this the other day. I've definitely talked to Ethan Strand about it. Like this year's field, men's 15, I don't think it's a stretch to say it's going to be the most stacked field of all time. And there will be a lot of pride for the person who wins it, because I think 10 years from now, we're going to look back on that race and be like, how was X, Y, and Z medalist in this? How was X, Y, and Z like national champion in this? The depth in that race is going to be crazy. How much are you already starting to think about that race and what it's going to take to win it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've had a couple previews between, Penn relays, the at 4 by mile. I had Nathan Green, Liam Murphy, Ethan Strand right there. And, everyone's running so fast already that it's obviously in my mind that, guys are going to go after the 1500, and, regional declarations just came out, and I think all the big names are pretty much contesting the 15. So, the competition's going to be there. And it's just kind of one of those things where it does feel like it's a special year for it, where everyone's going to be there. There's going to be a lot of really good guys who don't win, and if you're able to come out on top, I feel like it's going to have a little bit of extra specialness compared to other years, possibly.
When you view something like a regionals, obviously, I know you're a humble guy, so you might try to approach this question humbly, but like, there's no reason you shouldn't make it through. You're one of, if not the best guy in the 15 in the country. But also, I'm sure in the back of your head is like, I could trip, I could fall, the worst could happen. I could wake up with the flu tomorrow and I couldn't be able to run for a week. How do you balance those emotions with like checking the box with regionals? Because throughout the years of the podcast, I've heard people say like a lot of times regionals is way more nerve wracking than nationals. Because once you get to nationals, it's like, I'm here, I'm fine.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I think prelims in general are way more nerve wracking than the final, because for me at least, when you're at this point, it feels like there's nothing to gain from a prelim and everything to lose. Where like you should make it through. There's the expectation that you'll make it through, but if something happens and you don't make it, it's kind of catastrophic. So I think for me, there's going to be those nerves of, hey, like there's no reason I shouldn't make it through, and I know that, I'm confident, so I just have to put these nerves in the back of my mind and just go out and race and just get through it. Like, treat it like a race, but also just not get too nervous, not get too excited, just kind of balance myself emotionally and just get through it and save the energy for the big races.
What do you feel like is the superpower of Gary Martin? Like if you were a track analyst and you were commenting that men's 1500, like I think each of the top 6 guys kind of have their unique superpower. What do you feel like Gary Martin says?
I feel like I don't know. That's a good question. I feel like my superpower is consistency, which I know is, you know, obviously it doesn't sound flashy, but I think my power is just on a daily basis to show up and work really hard. And I feel like I'm someone who trains really well, and because of how consistent I am, I'm always confident going into races, and I know that whenever I toe the line, I'm going to show up, and I'm going to put my best foot forward, and hopefully it's enough to win. But if it's not, I know that I'm going to give it a fight, and I'm going to be there till the very end, and I'm gonna place high up, and I'm going to finish really well. So I think on a daily basis, I'm always going to be there.
Obviously, we talked about your high school a little bit. We'll talk about it a little bit more down the road in this conversation, I'm sure. But coming to UVA, like they were a good program, but they certainly were nowhere near as established as they are today. I was talking to Margot a little bit about this the other day. Like you two specifically with the two different programs underneath UVA kind of have elevated both of the programs to what they are today. And, if you would have told me 5-6 years ago that you guys were going to run 914, then the DMR would have been like, who? Like, not NAU. What was the decision to come to UVA? Obviously, you approached it more from like a building up the program perspective, and how cool is it to see, the program do all that you thought it could do when you were coming in as a freshman?
Yeah, I think a big part of the decision was obviously the coaches. Like Coach Vin has had so much success every stop he's made throughout the college ranks, and Coach Dunbar was a pro runner himself, and knows what it takes to be a really good runner. So I knew I could trust him. And then other than that, just the guys on the team, like guys were already running really well, like Wes Porter, Connor Murphy, Rohan Asphalt were like the guys I was looking up to when I was coming in. And when I visited, I just felt like it was a really good fit, and I felt like they were a group of guys who were committed to making this an elite program. So, I knew we were obviously they weren't there yet, but there was steps being made to become that kind of elite program. And I came in with the mindset of we're going to get there, and I'm going to have 2 or 3 years with these guys who are fantastic runners. And I think we've seen the program grow. Connor was All-American, Wes was All-American, Nate was runner-up in the steeplechase, Shane won NCAA's in the 800. My roommate Will was All-American in the 10K. So I think we have a lot of depth, a lot of talented guys, and it's just really cool to see it all pay off. And look at Virginia as an elite distance program.
For recruits who come in, what's the Gary Martin selling pitch for UVA over other schools?
I think the selling pitch is, we're not going to do anything flashy, and we're just going to work hard, and we're going to have a balance. We're going to have a good time. We're a good group of fun guys, and you're going to come here and you're going to get better. Like I think if you look at every single guy on our team, like everyone gets better, whether you're a 348 miler or you're a 359 miler or a 405 miler, you probably got better from high school. And doesn't matter what your goals are, you're gonna come here and you're gonna keep getting better.
You mentioned Vin. You've also mentioned Coach Dunbar, but let's focus on Vin. Fun Vin stories. What when you're ripping a track workout, is he taking you back in the day to Centro Day? Is like, what's it like having him as a coach, as a person, and any fun? I was talking to Margot about this, but I experienced this last year at Brooks PR. Man loves his elliptical, no matter where he goes.
He does. It's funny because I think he works hard on the elliptical than any of us might work on our runs, because at least it looks that way with how sweaty he is when he steps off it, because he's always drenched in sweat when he steps off that elliptical. But yeah, Vin's a really good guy. He's funny, and I think he loves taking us back to the Stanford, the Oregon days, and telling us stories about Stanford runners we've probably never heard of, but who were somehow All-American in the 15 or the 10K or some event. And yeah, I think it's just his experience is something you can trust, and he's a fun guy, but he also knows how to get it done.
Speaking of Coach Dunbar, you've mentioned him. I think he ran at Oregon back in the day, a part of that elite squad, then went on to be a professional with Nike, if I'm not mistaken. What's it like having a coach who has lived and breathed some of the moments that you're going through?
Yeah, like you said, Trevor he was an All-American in the 5K at Oregon. I think he was third NCAA's, and then he ran professional for a while. So I think it's just one of those things where when you have an assistant who has lived this very similar experience to you, you can kind of just trust that, he knows how you're feeling, and he knows what it takes. And, he's not trying to live something he didn't live. Like this is something he's been through. So I think there's a lot of trust in his experience and his knowledge, and he's just really good at putting himself in our shoes and giving us advice on what we should do.
Let's go back in time. Young Gary, take me through your start in the sport of running, and what were your first impressions of the sport growing up in PA?
My first start in running was I think I was like 5 or 6 and in kindergarten, and I always played soccer, baseball, basketball. And I was in grade school, and they had flyers for track and field, and I don't know why, because track and field doesn't seem like, to a little kid, probably doesn't seem like a very fun sport, but I thought it seemed fun, and I brought it home to my mom and asked if I could run track and field, and I don't think she thought I was old enough, but I pointed to the K on the flyer, which meant kindergarten. So I started running track in kindergarten, and I didn't want to run very far, but I ran the 100, the 200, 400, and stayed in shape for my other sports.
What was Gary clocking for the one back in the day?
I don't even remember. Probably not very fast, but it was fast enough where I was like my school kindergarten record holder. So I had some natural leg speed. Now it's been transferred to the distance events, but I was pretty good in the short sprints when I was like 6 years old.
You mentioned, what sports did you play? Soccer, basketball, baseball?
Soccer, basketball, baseball.
Yeah, of those three sports, I'm not sure how much you follow the pro or college, but we'll say pro world. Pick 3 to 5 athletes from each of those sports that you feel like would be good at running if they dedicated themselves to it. Not Gary Martin fast, but like you'd be like, oh wow, they're fast.
It's a good question, huh? So I don't know why, but I feel like I'm gonna go with because the finals or the playoffs are going on. I feel like Jalen Brunson would be a good runner, and I feel like the Knicks are well conditioned. Tibbs always has them running, so I feel like he could run maybe good eight at a good 800 maybe. Um, Baseball wise, I'm trying to think. I don't feel like a lot of baseball guys would be very good
They're
runners
also
because
pudgy.
there's not much running. But I'm a Phillies fan, so I'll go Johan Rojas because he's always in center field, sprinting and catching balls. So he'd probably be a good 100, 200 runner. And then let me think of a third one. This isn't a sport I played, but I'm gonna go to football, and I'm gonna stay with Philadelphia. I'm gonna go to the Eagles, and I'll go Saquon, which is an obvious choice, but I think
Interesting. You don't think
Saquon
he's
could
too
run a good
big?
100.
Oh, 100 for sure. 100 for sure. What do you think he'd clock in the mile?
I wouldn't be shocked if he could run like low fives, or
Okay.
I don't know, maybe low fives is a stretch.
I feel like
Maybe high
Devonta
fives.
Smith would be wildly fast. I
Yeah,
feel like he's got the
yeah,
body
he
for
would.
it.
He's got
Yeah.
the build for it too.
Yeah. I feel like he could go like 155 and 8. I don't know if that's like controversial.
If you give him a few months, I would agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of these sports athletes running fast times, there's long been this debate of, can LeBron James break 5 minutes in the mile? Where do you stand on this take?
Our team's discussed this a lot. I think LeBron James right now, definitely not. Prime LeBron James when he's whatever 26, 27. I think he comes close, but off the rip, I don't think so. But I think if you give him like a little bit of training, not even much, but a little bit, I think he does it.
Interesting. Yeah, it's like 5 minutes doesn't sound that fast either, you or I, but like statistically, I think it's like 60 seconds in the 4 and like 5 minutes in the mile are like very hard for the average individual. Even if you're
Yeah,
conditioned, I think it's just a lot for him. It's a lot of weight to carry around
that's
for
true.
a mile.
I think my frame of reference is like the Duke basketball team doing it, and I don't know if any of them broke 5, but they all ran pretty fast. But
Did they
I
really?
guess
I
LeBron
didn't
is
know that.
also a bigger than your average basketball player.
Yeah. Okay. Going back to this time, running young, getting into the sport, track, shorter distances. Was there a moment where you thought like, oh, running's my future. I enjoy this and I have a knack for it?
I don't think there ever was, to be honest. I think I was always pretty good at it, but I saw myself playing one of like baseball, basketball, soccer in high school. I was always best at soccer. I always liked basketball the best, but I wasn't the best at it. But yeah, I always loved sports, and I thought if anything I would find myself like in a sports front office or coaching or something, because I always liked the analytics and the stuff that went into it behind it. But I never saw myself actually being an athlete because I didn't think I really had what it took to compete at the highest level. But you know, I ended up running in high school, and freshman year flashed a little bit of talent. I think I ran like 54 seconds and 206. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I could go to college and run. And I think just as high school went on, the goals got bigger and bigger as I ran faster.
So fun fact about me, I was actually born in Pennsylvania, lived there 6 years of
Really?
life. So I take a little more pride and you and Drew Griffith, but I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't grow up there enough to the point where it went over my time of being passionate about the sport. So I like don't remember who was good back in the day. But for you, like when you were growing up in the sport and in high school, were there people you could look up to, or was it kind of the situation that was like, oh, there's not many people here? Because when I talked to Drew last year extensively, like he would point to you. And now PA kids will point to like Drew, you, some of the other guys in the state who are crushing it. Like I think all three went to Notre Dame. So for you when you were in the state, was it something you were aware of like PA is a good state for running, or did you kind of start that legacy?
I don't think it was something I was very aware of at first, because even my freshman and sophomore year when I started to run more, I don't think I was very clued into the sport yet. Like I was running track, but I wasn't really aware of what was going on, like in the state or the country. So, you know, I think the first time I really had like a runner to look up to was when I made indoor states in the mile my sophomore year, and I think I ran 4:22 and got fourth, and Patrick Anderson, who's at UNC now, won. And I feel like he was the first guy where I was like, this guy's really good. Like he's going to college at UNC. Like he's a crazy talented runner, and he was someone who like I looked up to, and I was close enough at that point where I was like, I want to be as good as him and I want to beat him. But that was the first time I was like, I made the state meet and I had these guys who were running faster than me, and I was like, I can look up to them and try to be as good as them.
Who's on your Mount Rushmore PA high school runners?
Hmm.
You can put yourself on there. You should.
I was gonna say, I think I'll put me and Drew on. I think that's me and Drew Griffith are a fair additions. Josh Hoey's definitely got to be on there. Uh, I'm trying to think. I feel bad. I'm blanking on the guy who had the mile state record before me, but it was the record held since the '80s, and he ran 4:03.
Wow.
I'm kicking myself for not remembering the name, but he's definitely on there. I'm sorry I'm forgetting the name, but he's got to be
I'll
on
find
there.
it. I'll find it post episode. We'll give him his
Yeah.
flowers. I mean, the '80s is way back when, so you can't kick yourself over that. Back in this time, when you were in high school, you were running fast. I think it also came out that Gary Martin was like the nerd, smart guy, got the glasses, and you kind of bought into that narrative. Was that funny on social media, starting to see stuff like that? And is it fun being more than just like Gary Martin the runner?
Yeah, I think it's really fun. I mean, I feel like I'm good at laughing at myself and laughing with people. I don't feel like any of it's mean spirited. And I think the first time I remember seeing a joke about that was after I won indoor nationals my senior year, and some guy commented on a runner space video that it looked like it looked like a Columbia law student got lost and stumbled onto the track, and I thought that was pretty funny, and it got a bunch of likes. So I feel like that was the first time it started, and then other people kind of picked up the whole nerd runner thing and ran with it, and you know I just think it's funny. It's fun. I think it's a cool thing. I have glasses, and not a lot of other people do that. So I'm gonna lean into it, and I'm gonna make it a part of my brand and my personality. So I think it's pretty cool.
I think a lot of people don't realize how prestigious UVA is from an academic perspective. Do you feel like that feeds into it at all now, where it's like you're not going to an NAU where academics don't really matter?
I mean, maybe a little bit. I don't. I think either way, people would look at the glasses and think the nerd runner thing. But I would say it probably helps being at UVA and pretty good academic reputation.
Do you ever get like 8K in a cross race and you're like, gosh, I want to throw off my glasses? Like these are annoying, or are you used to it at this point?
I've I never noticed them. I'll be honest. The only time I'll notice them is if it's pouring rain. Like even if it's drizzling, I really doesn't affect them. The only couple times I've noticed it if it's like pouring in a race, or I think there was twice I fell in a race and they fell off, which
Oh
isn't
gosh.
ideal. But other than that, it's really do not notice them at all.
What's the most to the point of glasses falling off in the race? What's the most throughout your entire life, like random race story you got for the people out there? Like something happened mid race and you're like, oh gosh.
I really don't know. I mean, I remember there was one time I was in high school and we were like, we weren't that far into the race. I want to say we were like, it was a high school cross country race. We were like 800 meters in, and it was like a giant pack still. And some guy just like yelled out like, "Hi, Gary Martin," just like yelled my name. And I was very confused, but it was pretty random.
How much talking did you do back in the day during races? And then NCAA, do you ever talk mid race or beginning?
Yeah, I don't think I talked much in high school. I mean, a lot of it was because there weren't usually people around me, but in college, I think we're kind of taught, especially in cross country, to like communicate with each other, if we're making a move or how we're feeling, and kind of just like as a tactic to like stay calm, just like if you're with a teammate, talk to them, let them know you're with them, and just work together. So I feel like I talk to teammates during cross country when I'm with them. And then, track, maybe sometimes, if I'm running the 1500 and, I'm coming up on a teammate, or, I'm trying not to get stepped on, I might kind of just say something, but I feel like it's usually cross country communicating.
Any trash talk mid race? Have you ever done that? High school, college?
Not really. I'm sure people won't be surprised by this, but I'm not a big trash talker. I usually like to let the running speak for itself, but I don't think I can think of any instances.
It's good, man. Good, man. I'm not endorsing it. I'm just curious about it. That's a Connor Burns type question. What was Connor back junior year of high school when Connor like wasn't Connor Burns? Was he like that? Tell the people. He really transformed into this character his senior year when I started to
Yeah,
get to know him.
I think so. I mean, I think the whole whatever it was like heroes versus villains senior year.
Villains.
I
We
feel like that
started that on
kind
the
of
podcast.
yeah. It seemed like everyone kind of picked up the whole like the kind of leaned into it and picked up a little more than it used to be. So I think when there's the narrative going around, it's easy to lean into it.
I think it was like I'm gonna forget, but Jake Paul had a documentary on Netflix, and it was like the bad boy of boxing. I was like, that's Connor Burns in running. He's like the bad boy of running. So it is crazy that at Big Tens, and it's so weird thinking of Oregon as in the Big Ten, but like seeing Simeon win the 5K, I was like, this is cool. Like those guys, that class is slowly starting to make their way because their freshman year they were all injured, like every single one besides Rocky, I think. So it's
Yeah,
cool to
I
see.
think that just shows you too. Like it takes time. I mean, you can have the best high school runners, the most talented runners, and no matter what, like college is an adjustment. I mean, for me, like I didn't get hurt, and I had an okay year, but I really didn't make a leap, and it just kind of shows that no matter how good you are, like just adjusting to college life and college training takes time, and just give it time, trust that the guys are going to work out, and it pays off.
We talked about this when we first hopped on a call. You're done with school for the year, so kind of living the professional runner lifestyle. How do you like it, and what do you do in the other 21 22 hours of the day when you're not running or training or lifting?
I really like it. I mean, it makes it easy. I really like to cook, so I have more time, cook healthy meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. We have a lot of guys who are here still for regionals, so playing a lot of cards with them, playing Catan, other board games, just kind of passing time. Um, and yeah, it's very nice. It's been fun just to have time to relax and focus on running, and make sure I'm hammering into the little things.
Who is the most feared person on the team when it comes to like card games or board games of like, oh, they won again? Are you up
I
there?
like to I would like to say I'm up there because I've been having a good run of wins, but we play a lot of Catan, which is like a very strategic game, and we have a fifth year Will Daly who he went to Dartmouth. He's really smart, good at board games, and I think when we're playing Catan, it's kind of like you got to watch out for him. We might need to team up on him and make sure he doesn't win. So yeah, he's pretty good.
Does it get pretty competitive? Like I know a lot of runners that competitive drive creeps into other aspects of their life, literally including like card games. Is that the case or no?
Yeah, it definitely it gets competitive.
Gets cutthroat. What's your favorite all time?
Favorite all time game?
Yeah, all time game, card or board game.
That's a good question. I think I don't know. I might say Catan, which I've only been playing for like a year, but I feel like that's grown on me a lot. It's a lot of fun, and it's easy to pass time quickly when you're playing it.
For where's UVA? Charlottesville? That's where it's at?
Charlottesville. Yep.
Okay, I'm glad I didn't like completely get that wrong. Would have been a bad look. What do you do? Like, let's say I was coming to town, or a friend from high school is coming to town. What are the spots? Like, what are the spots that make UVA UVA?
I think the natural beauty is a big thing. Like it's super scenic, so going for a hike, going to the water, and you know, kind of just enjoying the natural side of it is a big thing. And then there's a lot of good food. Like we have a downtown with good restaurants, good coffee. So I think my go-to, if I don't feel like I want to save the legs, is just go out for a nice dinner and walk around downtown and go to stores, go do stuff like that. But I think there's a lot to do. But those are kind of my go-tos.
What's the Gary Martin coffee order?
If I'm trying a new place, I like to just get a cortado, which is it's like equal parts espresso, equal parts milk. So you're able to taste the coffee a lot, and it's kind of I think it's fun to see how different coffees taste from different places. But if I'm just going for like a sweet drink, I really like a honey lavender latte is really good.
What's the take on race day? Are you a coffee the day of the race? Are you two coffees the day of the race? How do you like balance caffeine intake where you feel ready to go, but also not like you're like an anxious ball?
Yeah, well, on a daily basis, I'm a one or two coffee guy. So on race day, I'm probably three coffees. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm a big coffee drinker, and I think I'll on a race day I'll do my normal coffee throughout the day. So I'll have one in the morning, have one in the afternoon if needed, and then if it's a night race, I'll have another one before the race.
Is it ever hard to fall asleep, post race when you have that much caffeine in you?
I think it's hard to fall asleep post race whether I have caffeine or not. So I mean, the caffeine probably doesn't help, but I already kind of expect, especially if it's a late race, that I'm probably not going to sleep the best and just kind of accept it and fall asleep when I can.
Going back a little bit, let's talk to like a high schooler listening. What advice would you have for them? They look up to you, your journey, your career. How can they take their running to the next level?
I think just be patient and trust the process. Like, you know, if running isn't always it's not always linear progress and linear success, and there's going to be ups and downs. And if you're training hard and you're staying consistent, that's what really matters. Like, make sure you're getting sleep, make sure you're running the miles, and the rest will come.
For you and people who look at your career, obviously you were very good towards the end of high school, but you've continued to make jumps in college. I think that's something that is coming increasingly rare where like you can be a star in high school, but the difference between running 3:59 and being that guy in high school is not the same as running 3:48 in college and being that guy. What do you think have been some of the biggest ways that you've taken the necessary steps to, yeah, take those leaps in college and keep progressing and getting better?
I think I've been very careful about, you know, my nutrition, my hydrating, my sleep. Like, those things are important to me. I think sleep is the biggest one. I think the best form of recovery is just making sure you're sleeping enough and letting the body recover on its own. And other than that, just like eating enough and staying healthy. I think like fueling your body is the most important thing. And obviously you want to eat healthy when you can, but more than anything, it's just important to make sure you're fueling your body and giving yourself energy for runs so that you're burning the proper fuel. So I think those are the big things. And you know, you can point to stretching, rolling. I think that helps too, but I think really just fueling your body properly is the main thing to staying consistent and allowing yourself to train harder and run more miles.
Few final questions wrapping up here. One more serious one. It could be something you've talked about in this conversation, something entirely new. For those who have listened to the conversation, what's the final takeaway message that you want to give to the people out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think my main takeaway would just be, have fun with the sport. It's a fun sport, and if you're having fun, it comes a lot easier. So just find reasons to enjoy, you know, the daily aspect of training. So, whether it's listening to music, running with friends, you know, trying a new trail, trying a new type of shoe, just find little things to make running easier, because if you're using less mental energy, like getting yourself out the door, and granted, it's not always going to be easy. And sometimes part of the battle is getting yourself out the door, but you want to save energy for the big moments when you need it, like workouts and races and stuff like that. So just have fun with the little things, and I think the rest will come.
Gary, it sounds like you've been following the playoffs for the NBA. Hot takes: who's winning it all? Who's going to the finals first off, and who's winning it all?
I know they're down 0-1 right now, but I think the finals will be Knicks Thunder, and I kind of think the Knicks are going to win it all. I think it'll go.
Really
I don't know why. I just have a feeling about the Knicks. We'll see if I'm right, but yeah, I think the
interesting.
Thunder are probably the best team, but I think the Knicks. I just think it might be their year.
I want to find
Unfortunately
this.
for me as a Sixers fan.
Yeah, listen to this crazy stat. Um, if my iPad will let me pull it up. Since 1996 to 1997, teams that have trailed by 7+ points in the final 50 seconds of the fourth quarter or overtime in the playoffs are 4 wins to 1,702 losses. The Indiana Pacers have 3 of those wins, and they're all this year.
Wow, that is crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
That is
I just
nuts.
like, I keep counting them out, and then they keep proving me wrong. And it's just like,
Yeah, and that might be I might be counting them out for like the Pacers are great, and maybe I'm counting them out when I shouldn't be because clearly they keep proving it wrong.
what's crazy though is they look so bad until like the final 10 minutes of the game, and then their comeback so good that that's all that people talk about, because I think it's like the recency bias where you just remember like the last 5-10 minutes of the game and how it ended. But
Yeah.
they were getting spanked last night, and then they came out of nowhere. It was crazy. So I never really have followed the NBA. I've always been more of like a college sports guy. I think they're more exciting. Like you can't beat March Madness, but
True.
for whatever reason, this playoffs I feel like has been so exciting. It's been so
It's
many
been really
twists and
good.
turns. Yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
new faces and a lot of young teams. It's cool.
totally. On the NBA note, MJ or LeBron, who you taking? Greatest of all time?
I think LeBron.
Really?
I think so.
How?
I mean,
I don't get this debate.
it's tough. I just think I don't know. I think LeBron's longevity, both his greatness, like how many titles he's won, and his individual performance. I think if you give him similar circumstances to Jordan, like if you even everything out completely, I think LeBron has probably had a more impressive performance throughout his career. But it's tough. It's close.
Who are you? If you're, pick up five on the street, who you picking? LeBron or MJ? Is it still LeBron?
Game of pickup, I might be taking MJ.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know that's hard. It's a hard question. Even like the GOAT debate, I think I go back and forth.
It's my take on it is LeBron has flashier and fancier stats, but MJ won, and I think here's the thing, and here's what makes the debate nuanced. This is turning into NBA podcast, but I'm so here for it. It's what are we factoring into what makes a GOAT a GOAT? For me, it's winning. Like
Yeah.
if I'm thinking about running, it's like who won the most and who won the most consistently and less of times, because like times will always go down. I think it's similar for the NBA. The landscape these days is so much different than it was back in the day for MJ. And I think, yes, LeBron wins the conversations on like overall points, some of those sort of debates. But when we talk about who won, like MJ was dominant and people feared him. Like people feared him. People did not want to play against him. I think winning 6 is crazy. And I think LeBron, the thorn in his side will be he really didn't get it done in the finals. Like he's been there, I think 10 times, 9 times, and he's got a losing record in the finals, and he's the only one out of like Shaq, Curry, MJ, Kobe to like have a losing record in the finals. And I think like what makes greatness great is like they get it done at the highest level, and I don't think LeBron does.
It's fair.
Call me
That's a good
crazy.
argument.
And
That's
I'm an
not crazy.
Ohio guy, so I should technically go for LeBron, but I'll go so far as to say if we're the factors that make LeBron in the debate conversation, Curry has a place at the table. If that's
That's true. I think
Curry was more evolutionary to the game than LeBron, I think, in some ways.
probably. Yeah, I think I mean, not as good of an all-around player, but
No, not at all.
revolutionized the game in a completely different way.
Not at all. I can't wait for all the DMs I'm about to get. Oh, you're hitting on LeBron. But did you watch The Last Dance? I will say that changed my opinion. I think
I did.
The Last
Well, I
Dance.
watched. I was gonna say. I think if it was 2020 and I just watched The Last Dance, I'm probably saying Jordan. Again, I go back and forth, but it was that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy. People feared him, like, and I think you want that as someone that you're competing against. It's like people to fear you. So, what would you say? Who's the GOAT of running, of all of distance running? We don't have this combo. Is it Kipchoge? Is it someone else? Sadapek for going back in the day?
I almost want
Gary
to say
Martin
El
in 20
Gourouche.
years? Oh, El
I don't know.
Gourouche. Interesting.
Depending on the angle you want to go from, I feel like Kipchoge or El Gourouche.
Interesting.
I
What
think El
about if you
Gourouche
include
is
sprints?
impressive. Sorry.
If you include sprints, does Bolt have a place or no?
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm thinking distance. I think Bolt might take the cake if you go all across everything.
As a character in the sport, the nerd guy, what's your take on a guy like Noah Lyles? Way different, but similar clout.
I like it. I think it's good for the sport, and I think obviously the like the world champions of what I think some people might look at it as being a little corny at times, but I think it draws much needed attention to the sport, and I think he's having fun with it, and I think when he steps on the track sometimes he's almost playing a character, and we've talked about that a little bit with how runners lean into their brand of sorts, and I think Noah Lyles is really good at that.
Going back to the basketball thing, 2 more fun questions for you. If UVA was to assemble, we'll say 3, we're going to go 3v3s across the country, all the distance schools. how would y'all fare up? You take the 3 best guys on the team, throw them on the court, basketball. Would y'all clean? Would y'all cook? Or would you be out first round?
I would say we'll be middle of the pack, maybe a little less than, like third tier out of 4. Like, not, yeah, we got a couple good guys, but I don't know if I'm trying to think. We don't have much height on our team. Like, we got a lot of guys who are like 6'1", 6'2", but I don't think we would have, I'm sure there's teams out there who have just some taller guys. So I think we'd maybe struggle a little bit.
Gary, final question for you. The question I ask every single guest on every single podcast. If you had Gordon Ramsay coming over to your house for dinner, what would you choose to make for him?
Maybe a boring answer, but I would go salmon, rice, and spinach, because I feel like that's my go-to meal, and I've kind of perfected the spinach and salmon, and rice is rice. I mean, it's good rice. Could be better probably, but I think that's what I would make.
I love it. Gary, thank you for taking the time to chat. Congrats on all of your success, and excited for the coming few years, both NCAA, pro life, whatever you attack in life. I know you're going to crush it. So appreciate the time.
Thanks, Dominic. Appreciate it.